Hello, this is Leqian Zheng. I'm glad to bring our work on high-performance Oblivious RAM. And this is a joint work with Wentao, Cong Wang from City University of Hong Kong, Zheng, Zhang, Wu from ByteDance Inc. And nowadays, encryption alone in many applications is insufficient, as access patterns, namely which encrypted data are accessed, can still leak sensitive information. Like in this toy example, adversaries could infer the secret value by checking whether account is accessed. And the core reason behind it is that different secret input data may yield different access patterns during the program execution, and which in turn can be exploited to infer the secret input. ORAM was then proposed to conceal such leakage. It ensures that access patterns provide no meaningful information but only the length of the input data. And the ORAM design script generally follow either tree-based or hierarchical design, and we'll cover them shortly. Over decades of research, ORAM has been the de facto standard in various settings. And the specific setting we'll focus on today is computational computing with trusted execution environments, and which is prevalent in today's cloud computing. Despite of its attractive features like confidentiality, integrity, isolation, and with minimal performance overheads, most of them do not protect access patterns by design. Hence, Oblivious RAM is proposed to hide access patterns in both trusted and untrusted worlds. However, existing designs suffer from notable or even frustrating performance overheads. Like a several nanosecond final operation on map requires tens of milliseconds if performed obliviously, or sub-second Dijkstra shortest path algorithm requires several hours if performed obliviously, and it is thus critical to improve ORAM's efficiency. And the key insight is that if a single plain non-oblivious access pattern were transformed into similar operations over 1,000 data blocks in both approaches, which one would be faster? Well, we observe that in hierarchical RAM, data blocks are stored in a few contiguous regions memories, like in these levels, whereas in tree-based ORAM, the data is scattered throughout the memory, and those bucket and the node. Namely, hierarchical RAM ingests better data locality, which generally translates to better performance. And in addition, the time-dominant part in hierarchical RAM is its rebuild process, which mainly consists of several rounds of oblivious sorts that could be easily parallelized. However, in tree-based one, those operations need to be done recursively. Namely, it is hard to parallelize. In short, as long as we can achieve similar complexity, a hierarchical roadmap will perform better in our city. And this brings our design, H2O2RAM, and as its main components are oblivious hash tables laid at its levels, the remaining technical challenge is to optimize their performance. We then propose 3 optimized hash schemes, each offering different advantages. And the first intention behind those oblivious table designs is to compute tight or approximately tight parameters for oblivious hash tables. I will soon brief what tight means. And we know that an oblivious hash table will experience n lookups after its construction, and it will be rebuilt and then experience another n lookups. Of course, those lookups should be non-recurrent, namely they are not repeated. And in our first optimized hash table, hash scheme, bucket hash, we utilize a crypto pseudo-random function to distribute each data block into one of m buckets. And each bucket has a uniform capacity and will be paired with dummy elements to reach its full capacity. To ensure correctness, the bucket capacity must be set to a lower bound that guarantees a negligible probability of overflow. Namely, those data blocks can be safely distributed into those buckets. And to ensure obliviousness, each lookup must scan an entire bucket, thereby hiding the actual number of real data items inside it. And intuitively, increasing the number of buckets reduces the bucket capacity, thereby lowering the cost per lookup. However, this also results in a relatively larger overall hash table size, which in turn increases the rebuild cost. This interplay presents a fundamental trade-off, leading to a central question. What is the optimal number of buckets to achieve peak performance? And as its overall complexity is informally and approximately model, we leverage a ternary research to determine the optimal end. We then move to our second customized hash table design, Cong hash, in which each data box is assigned to one of its key candidate table entries. It has been widely employed in previous hierarchical RAM designs, and in pair works, k is normally set to 2. Namely, each data block will have 2 candidate table entries. And to handle data blocks that cannot be placed into either of these 2 candidate budgets, stash of size O log n is typically employed. Of course, success with all but a negligible chance. For obliviousness, again, each lookup must scan the entire stash as well as both candidate entries. And we wonder whether we can get rid of this relatively cumbersome stash while still retaining a negligible overflow probability. Note that though the stash size is O log n, concrete values of its size are hundreds or even thousands. And remember, each lookup will linearly scan the entire stash. And we find some theoretical results from a work by Kevin Yao in Crypto 23. Our numerical analysis shows that setting k to at most 6 surface. Namely, we reduce 1,000 to hundreds to thousands scans to only 6 comparisons or oblivious comparisons. And in addition, we develop a novel oblivious bipartite matching algorithm that serves as the core building block for stateless Kuko construction, and it may be of independent interest. We also remark that our new oblivious bipartite matching is some constant times faster than the previous one. And the previous Kuko hash construction algorithm is only specified for the stash Kuko hash. It is not suitable for stashless Kuko hash table. And similarly, several techniques are leveraged to optimize the performance of our third hash scheme. If we assume input are randomly shuffled, which can be done in own time, as detailed in previous work, each data block can be distributed or assigned to each bucket in a non-oblivious way. Namely, we just do it like in plaintext, while only a small and secret portion of each large bucket will be obliviously routed to a secondary hash table. And there are 3 main targets to be optimized. First, it is similar to the bucket hash, namely the number of main hash tables, m, and the second is sampling parameters, namely the small how many data blocks of the main hash bucket should be obliviously and secretly routed to the second hash table. It can be improved with some numerical analysis. And third is the underlying hash schemes for both hash bucket and the secondary hash table because they are large. Linear scanning them is prohibitive. We will recursively adopt some other oblivious hash schemes for them. Our second key observation is that no single hash schemes is universally optimal. Each exists within a specific range of input sizes. For example, while the linear scan method has a high O log lookup cost, it performs exceptionally well on small inputs. Concurrently, those containing no more than 1,000 data blocks in our experiments. And bucket hash tables serve as the middle level of our ORAM design, and such a selection of appropriate hash tables while leaving the asymptotic complexity unchanged contributes substantially to improved practical performance. And by some mathematical deduction, we obtain that the ambient test extension of our design is O log square n, and on pair with the previous SOTA state-of-the-art results, and thus achieves the premise of our key insight. Hence, implies our conclusion that hierarchical RAM will perform better. And in our experiments, we show how the number of m of buckets impacts the overall performance of our bucket hash tables. We know that the optimal overall running time of a bucket hash table of a oblivious bucket hash table is several times faster than a generally adopted setting where n equals to m on the right hand side here. And this validates the necessity of tuning this parameter for better performance. We also evaluate the performance of our work with different input data sizes and the different data block sizes. And its growth trends agree with our asymptotic analysis. Besides, our benchmark evaluations show that it could achieve about 1,000 speed up compared to prior state-of-the-art designs. We also remark that the results of GraphOS are directly taken from their paper. And as for Enigmatic, it has undergone a complete re-implementation. Also, it has also integrated some new algorithmic optimization, and the brand new version hosting a new GitHub repo outperforms the legacy implementation from their paper and evaluated in our work. And please see our paper for more detailed evaluations and the link to our open source repository. And here is the references of our presentation. And thank you for your attention, and any questions or clarification are welcome.